talks about leaving father and mother and cleaving to the wife. And it says that the two of them were naked and they weren't ashamed.
Right.
So God gave Adam this woman. He was like, check this out. I'm good to go. Right?
That's right.
Right? This is bone of my bone. This is flesh of my flesh. This is about to go down. And it says that they were naked and not ashamed. And so they have this relationship, right? That looks like it's about to be all good.
Yeah.
Come on now. Y'all get this? When that thing comes together, it looks like it's about to be all good. Y'all all right? But I want to remind you of something.
Yeah.
That before all of this occurs, and before God gives Adam his helpmate, he tells Adam something that's very important that's going to come up here in a moment. He tells Adam, you can eat anything in the entirety of this garden.
It's all good.
Y'all all right?
Yeah.
You can eat anything in the entirety of this garden except for this tree. Isn't that right? Yes. He says, because the day that you eat thereof, thou shalt surely what? Die. Right? So listen, I want you to see that God has a way that he does things. First of all, God gives a provision. Right? You can eat anything in here. Right? But when God gives you something and provides you with something, right? That's the provision.
Yeah.
He also gives you the prohibition. You can't do this.
Stop it. Stop it.
Y'all get it? This you can do.
Yeah.
This you can't do. But not only that, but he gives the provision, he gives the prohibition, but then he also gives you protection. Because he lets you know, because if you do this, these are the consequences that I'm trying to protect you from. Does that make sense? So God gives a provision, God gives his prohibition, but he also gives his protection. Right? Now this is the message that he gives to Adam. Y'all all right? So then he gives Adam this woman. Right? And it looks like it's about to be all good.
Make it happen.
Y'all all right? But then we fast forward to chapter number 3.
Yeah.
And this woman that Adam now has as his wife encounters someone who we refer to as the serpent.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And she begins to engage in a dialogue with this serpent.
Word.
And it comes up in the midst of this conversation about this particular tree. Y'all remember this? That we are not supposed to do anything with this tree because the day that we eat, come on now, y'all remember this? We're gonna die. Now watch this. That directive was given to who?
Adam.
Who is now speaking?
Eve.
So we know that there has been some
Dysfunction.
Come on now. Y'all see this? We know that there's been some communication. Adam has tried to step into his husbandly duties in terms of saying, listen, Eve, it's all good up in here. We can eat anything that we got. We got steaks, we got scrimps, we got scampies, we got all the good stuff.
Yeah.
But what we cannot do is eat from this tree. Right? Because the day that we eat this tree, it's a wrap.
No fish.
There are going to be consequences. God has provided for us, but he has prohibited us because he's trying to protect us.
Yeah.
Right? But now Eve is engaged in a dialogue with somebody else about what's going on in their domain.
Yeah.
Y'all all right? We're talking about dealing with dysfunction.
Yeah.
We're talking about dealing with dysfunction. And so then the servant comes back and says, well, you know, you're not going to die. You shall not surely die. God just knows that if you eat of this, you're going to be like him. Y'all all right?
All right.
We're already seeing the seeds of dysfunction presenting themselves in the midst of this relationship.
That's right.
Y'all get it? First of all, the husband has already told you how how this is supposed to go. Y'all need to be on the same page. Y'all all right?
Yeah.
Y'all need to be on the same page. God gave me the message. I gave the message to you. We're going to stick with God. I don't care who comes into the situation. Second of all, why are you talking to this serpent instead of talking to me?
Yeah.
Dealing with dysfunction. It is dysfunctional when you begin to allow people outside of the situation to begin having influence inside of the situation.
Yeah.
Y'all get it?
Yeah.
So why are you talking about dysfunction? Watch this. I have to drop this right here. Is that you might say to yourself that I don't have a dysfunctional family. And I will say to you that you are a bona fide liar.
Amen.
Because every family has dysfunction.
Yes.
What are you saying?
Amen.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that dysfunction, from a definitional perspective, deals with the idea of a departure from the norm. Right? Something that is abnormal from the standard.
Yeah.
Okay? Something that is abnormal from the standard. Now watch this. We understand that every day, to some degree, we deviate from God's standard.
Right.
That's right.
Amen.
Am I right? Every day, to some degree, we deviate from God's standard. So watch this. That means that this abnormality is normal.
That's right.
But watch this. But there's a difference between acknowledging that this abnormality is normal and normalizing abnormality.
That's right. That's right.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
I acknowledge that this abnormality is normal. But what I refuse to do is to normalize abnormality.
Bring it.
It's going to occur. It's going to happen. But that doesn't mean that I have to just allow it to perpetuate. So I know that this thing is abnormal. I know that this abnormal thing is actually normal because it occurs all the time. But what I refuse to do is to normalize it.
That's right.
Y'all with me so far?
Yeah.
So they're deviating from the standard already.
Yeah.
So all of this occurs.
Yeah.
She is beguiled by the serpent. They eat of the tree. And we understand what happens from there, right? We understand what happens from there. But here's where the dysfunction perpetuates. The dysfunction perpetuates when God is coming through the garden, the Bible says, in the cool of the day.
Yeah.
The afternoon, the evening time. And they have hidden themselves. Adam, where are you?
Signal.
When God begins to dialogue with Adam, he says, we hid because we were naked and we were afraid.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, you're already telling on yourself. Because who in the world told you that you were naked? Because when I gave you that woman, y'all was naked and not ashamed. Now all of a sudden, the scenario has changed because you've allowed somebody outside of the situation to impact inside the situation. Y'all get it?
Get it.
And it is continuing to sow discord and dysfunction in the midst of your relationship, right?
That's right.
So the dialogue continues. The dialogue continues, and they continue to not take responsibility for their actions. Because then Adam turns around and says, that woman that you gave me.
Right.
What a man does, watch this. What a man does is takes responsibility for his actions.
That's right.
Y'all get it?
Absolutely.
Even if I allowed her to move me in that direction, the ultimate responsibility is still mine.
That's it.
Does that make sense?
That's accountability.
So I'm manifesting dysfunction
Yeah.
by not only taking my rightful place and saying, no, we're not going to do that, but I'm perpetuating that dysfunction, or I'm compounding that dysfunction by now trying to blame her for me not stepping up and doing what I should have done. Does that make sense? A lack of responsibility. further dysfunction.
Hey.
But watch this. So it goes on, and then Eve also engages in not taking responsibility for her actions because she says the serpent beguiled me.
Uh-huh.
Nobody can make you do something that you didn't want to do.
Right.
Y'all get it? God had already given you the standard. You deviated from the standard. Therefore, we have a dysfunctional situation. Are y'all with me so far? And so there's a problem here. So we understand that as a result of that, God begins to engage with them and tells them all the things and the consequences that are going to come out of their actions. But here's where I want to park for a moment. We've seen that God has a provision. We've seen that God has a prohibition. And we see that God is trying to protect us by virtue of the prohibition.
That's right.
That sets the standard. That when we deviate from the standard, that it is an abnormal thing. But we understand that it's human nature that from time to time we're going to deviate from the standard, which means that this abnormality is somewhat normal.
That's right.
But it's my responsibility to recognize that and not to normalize that thing that I understand is abnormal. That does make sense, doesn't it? All right, y'all follow that, right? I know that's a lot of normally abnormal. Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure y'all understand what I'm saying. This abnormal thing occurs at a regular rate. It occurs all the time, so it's normal. But you don't normalize an abnormality. Y'all get it? There are things that occur even within the human body that are abnormal.
Yeah.
You get a headache, right? But you make sure that you take something for the headache because you don't want to normalize the abnormality. Does that make sense? All right. Now watch this. Watch this. So what I don't see is I see God handing out consequences for their actions. But there's something that I don't see. I don't see a recognition. I don't see repentance.
All
Y'all get it?
Yeah.
I don't see a recognition. I don't see at any point Adam and Eve go, you know what, Lord? My bad. Y'all get it? I don't at any point see them take responsibility for their actions.
Yeah.
And what I want you to understand is that when there are three things absent, that you then set the stage for dysfunction to become generational.
All right.
Y'all all right? When you don't set the stage properly, when you don't do the right thing, when you don't move by virtue of this departure from the standard, you set the stage for the dysfunction to become generational. Because we see that there is poor communication in this family. We see that we have a husband and a wife that are not on the same page. We see that we have people that are not willing to accept responsibility for their actions. Y'all get it?
Right.
So this becomes the DNA of the family. And there is no indication that there's a change of heart. Y'all get it?
Right.
So God kicks them out of this perfect place.
Right.
So think about it this way. Let's put it in 2019 terms. You get married.
All right.
You get a beautiful home. Your dream home, as a matter of fact. And somebody comes and begins to talk to your wife about some things that you need to do with the financing of your house. Right? You've already consulted the experts. And they said, listen, this is a perfect time for you to buy this house. If you keep it for this long, if you don't do it, don't refinance, don't do anything, you are going to be in great shape moving forward.
Yeah.
You've already expressed this to your wife. Your wife encounters somebody and begins to discuss the details of your plan
Yeah.
with somebody that is not in the house,
Oh, that's right.
that has their own motivations, that has their own designs on the situation. Y'all get it? And so she comes home and says, honey, I was talking to this man. First of all, don't tell me about no man that you've been talking to.
That's right.
I was talking to this man. And this man told me that rather than doing what the experts said that we should do, rather than sticking with the plan that we've already agreed to and devised, that what we need to do is do what he's telling us that we should do.